What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Magic Dads podcast. My name is Blake. I'm here with Stefan.
Hey, yo, what's up?
Listen, if you like what we're doing here, please subscribe to the channel. Make sure you turn notifications on so that we get to annoy you every time we upload a video. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, go ahead and give the podcast a follow. All of that is free. But if you would like to help us out monetarily, there is a link to our Patreon down in the comment section of this video. And now that that is out of the way, we can start with today's episode, which is part 2 of the one-pointed cards.
Yes. Some of the best cards in the format.
If you haven't watched that video, it's right there or over there.
Yeah.
It's
or there.
It's somewhere.
You'll find it. You're smart people.
It's
most
there.
of you.
First card on the list for today is a card that I know Stefan is very fond of. It's Intuition.
Intuition from Tempest. This is, in fact, financially the most expensive card from Tempest, I believe. It's like this just above Earthcraft.
Is Earthcraft really worth that much?
It's a powerful combo card.
Wasteland isn't worth that much anymore, right? Because it's been printed into the dirt.
Yeah, it was also an uncommon in Tempest.
Yeah. I can't think of any other really expensive Tempest cards. I mean, Lotus Petal is stupidly expensive, but it's not more expensive than Intuition.
It's also only expensive because of scarcity. If they just reprinted it, if they literally just did a reprinting of that card, even at uncommon, the value, like the price on it, would go down insanely.
So Intuition, expensive card, also very, very sweet.
Yeah, this card is if anybody is a fan of Gifts Ungiven,
right?
This is Gifts Ungiven. Gifts Ungiven's leaner, younger brother.
Yeah, it's Gifts Ungiven if Gifts Ungiven drank a Red Bull.
Yeah, it went to 3 cards for 3 mana instead of 4 cards for 4 mana.
So like Intuition, you can do some fair stuff with it. You could just like go find, a removal spell suite and let your opponent give you the worst removal spell that you pick. Or you could go get Lion's Eye Diamond, Underworld Breach, and Savine's Reclamation.
Yes,
then you win the game.
Yeah, because so in a lot of these lists, Breach, or a lot of the Breach Storm lists that are Jeskai or 4-color or 5-color, they have certain piles, and in this the piles include recasting Intuition.
Yeah,
out of your bin.
Yeah,
like I didn't realize that for the longest time, and then I was like, oh wait, you just get to recast this spell and
because
find more cards.
I mean, Breach is obviously the most busted card in this thing, but it's not possible without Intuition.
Correct. Intuition, that style of card where you let your opponent pick their own demise, but the joke is it's they're always dead.
Yeah, you can also do like reanimator things with it, where where you go get like what is it called, Unburial Rites, and then whatever card, and then your Atraxa or Gristlebrand or whatever it is that you plan on reanimating.
Yeah, and oftentimes they'll just put the target. If you get like an Unburial Rites and 2 targets, and like a Gristlebrand and an Atraxa, they have to pick which one kills them.
Right,
and that's the best feeling.
Right. Choose your demise, peasant.
Yeah, up until now, it was like Gristlebrand and Inkwell Leviathan, so they would always choose Inkwell Leviathan. And now it's like 2 even worse choices because Atraxa is so good.
Atraxa bananas.
Yeah, it's so good that the cards that they don't want you to have just go to the graveyard. If they went to the bottom of your library, this card would be stone unplayable.
I mean, yeah, probably.
But just going to the graveyard is right where you want cards to be anyway.
Yeah.
This card is very good. Play it. It's 1 point.
Yeah, try it out. How? Let's do the thing. How do we feel about Intuition? Does Intuition deserve its point?
3, 2, 1.
I think it does. I don't think that you can take the point away from Intuition, just because you could do some very, very absurd things with it. It's very consistent, and it definitely deserves its point.
Yeah, and you make some small deck building considerations like include a couple of cards that are a package for it, and then you just get to murder people with a single card. Like
Yeah.
you could be totally down and out, have no game plan at all, and I've had this happen before where it's like I am dead
Oh,
on
look,
board.
an intuition.
Yeah, and you're just like, oh, I guess I win now.
I guess I win now. Awesome.
I guess I win.
The next card on the list is Mana Drain. I could easily do an entire episode of the podcast on this card, but let me surmise in that this card is the most powerful counterspell that has ever been printed.
That's a hard call to make. I think I agree
Powerful
now.
counterspell that has ever been printed.
It's so contextual, and it requires mana. It's rough.
Here's the thing, though. You don't need to use the mana that it makes.
Yeah.
And the cards that are free, with the exception of Days, cost you card advantage.
Yeah,
like Force of Will and Force of Negation and Misdirection and things like that.
Fair enough.
They cost you card advantage. Mana Drain just counters the spell and then gives you additional mana on your next turn.
This is true. That it does require that you hold up some amount of mana, so it goes in a deck that doesn't want to tap out, right? Like you sort of. I'm saying that there's a certain amount of considerations in what deck it goes into. That being said, even getting 2 mana back on this thing feels pretty good.
A lot of the tempo, like the Teamer tempo and the Jeskai tempo decks in our format, or our metagame, have cut dig through time. So when Canadian Highlander first kind of exploded here, a lot of those tempo decks, their point spreads were like Recall, Treasure Cruise, True Name Nemesis, dig through time. And the idea there is like basically Dig Through Time and Treasure Cruise are just redundant copies of Ancestral Recall. And then for a while, people were playing Mystical Tutor. For that point. Yeah. Most recently, they have moved to Mana Drain in this spot. The reason for that is because even when you're playing those tempo-y decks, the games tend to go very long and they get very grindy, and people are playing 4 and 5 drops now. And Mana Drain just looks really good when you can cleanly answer your opponent's spell with a 2-mana counter spell, and then you get a little bit of a rebate back for it on your next turn. Things are good.
Yeah, it's a very good, very powerful spell. The floor on it is counterspell.
Yeah,
that's the floor because Mana Burn doesn't exist now.
Yeah, a lot of the times when players are waffling about this decision, I ask them the question: do you want another copy of counterspell? Because that's what this is.
Yeah. It's very good.
It's counterspell with an upside.
That being said, I don't know that every deck wants to play counterspell right now. If you're just whiffing, like if you're grazing the edge of counter magic, I don't know that every blue deck that has Force of Will and Force of Negation and Days also wants counterspell. I think that there's a very real portion of those decks that just doesn't play counterspell.
No, I am inclined to agree. Although that specific chunk of the pie is quite small. Typically, I think, when you're in blue and you're doing those sorts of things, you do want counterspell.
Yeah, it depends on how reactive you want to be. The three spaces where counterspells really fill in are hard control, protection, and responses. So like if you want to stop your opponent from doing what they want to do, if you just have it as part of your overall game plan, or if you are protecting a very explicit proactive game plan. Which is like easy, medium, hard, right? Hard mode is always playing hard.
Okay, how do you feel?
3, 2, 1.
I'm
shocked.
I thought for sure we were going to disagree on that. I don't think Mana Drain deserves a point. I don't either. I think it's ridiculous.
It's so weird that they pointed that card. It felt like it came out of nowhere. And I know nobody's really calling it for it to be unpointed.
So, I mean, I get the distinct impression that, blue is the best color in Magic, and so the powers that be that are pointing and deciding things just want to point blue into the dirt.
Yeah.
And
or at least like 1 point obvious things.
Especially in the most recent weeks and months, blue is like one of the least popular colors here. Yes, it still gets played. There's the guy that always plays Jeskai Tempo. There's the guy that always plays like some form of creamer or teamer or you know, Jeskai. But like the most popular color combinations in Des Moines recently have been like black red variants or mono white.
Yeah. There has been a Sultai deck that came out recently. One of our locals has started playing.
Yeah, we have a
rad.
Sultai stand.
Yeah, I think that deck is awesome.
But I'm just saying, I don't know that blue is the most powerful color anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't need. If we're pointing for ubiquity, there's a lot more ubiquitous cards that see play. You know, if we're pointing for ubiquity, then why is Brainstorm not a point?
Yes.
Right? if Brainstorm isn't a point, I don't think Mana Drain needs to be a point.
10, I would point Brainstorm before I ever thought about pointing Mana Drain.
I agree. Yeah, it's Brainstorm is closer to Recall than Treasure Cruise or
ever
want to be.
Another thing though is that this always kind of comes to mind whenever I'm looking at these points and going like, I don't think that deserves to be pointed as like. I feel like a lot of it is based on the vintage restricted list. There's a lot of overlap between the restricted cards and the pointed cards.
Right, there is.
And so, but the biggest difference for me is that, yes, even if it is restricted, you still only get to play one copy, but it's 60 cards versus 100 cards.
100, yeah. And 60 cards that include, like, you get to play a copy of Demonic Tutor, and you get to play you get all of these super powerful cards that interact favorably.
Right. There is no limitations on, like, you only get to play 10 points in Vintage. No, you get to play all of the restricted cards in the same decks, which a lot of Vintage decks do.
Yeah, basically the deck builds itself up until 30 cards.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, what's the flavor of this?
Right. So the next card on the list is Mana Vault.
This one's interesting because this card doesn't see a lot of play.
It doesn't. There are two players that I can think of right off at the top of my head that have Mana Vault in their deck in our meta. One of the decks is just trying to play a lot of 4-drops. So it's an Abzan mid-range deck that has a whole bunch of really, really good 4-drops in it, like Seasoned Dungeoneer.
Oh, it's an initiative deck.
Things like that. And they spend the rest of their points on like whatever else. And some players may opt for other single-pointed cards like, I don't know, Tainted Pact maybe, or they might go for something like Survival of the Fittest, say.
Right.
This person just decides that the best thing that they could possibly do is to just play a 4-drop on turn 1.
Well, 4-drop on turn 1 would be a little difficult because it only produces like you're spending a mana to get the 3 out of it.
4-drop on turn 2, whatever.
Yeah. So like the powerful acceleration on it is there's a reason this is 1 point versus 4 points for Soul Ring, and
you have to pay to untap it. It doesn't just get to untap, and it also
pings you.
Yeah, it deals you a damage every upkeep.
Yeah, it's still very powerful. It's an artifact, which is sort of the other part of it. Like it's easy to find. It's easy to. There's so many synergies inherent with like just having an artifact that produces an additional free mana.
So, do you think that any deck will just play Mana Vault if it's not on the points list? Like, do you just shove Mana Vault in every deck?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Yeah. So let's vote really quick. Yeah. 3, 2, 1.
Well, it's kind of a poopy card, to be completely honest. Yes, you get like a Dark Ritual immediately,
Correct.
But then in every time I've ever seen this card played, it like chunks out some huge thing, and then it just sits there tapped for the rest of the game.
Exactly.
And the damage from it is usually pretty negligible. Like, I don't think that the damage from the Mana Vault matters a whole bunch. But, like, are we pointing Dark Ritual?
Right, exactly. That's exactly the point I was going to make. Is like, Dark Ritual is 0 points. All Pyretic Ritual is 0 points. Seething Song is 0 points.
Yeah, well, and those aren't exactly the same as Dark Ritual, but I see what you're saying.
But when it doesn't need to be pointed just because it's mana positive.
Yeah.
And this card almost never gets untapped.
I mean, I can think of a lot of ways to untap it, but then at that point we're playing a lot of bad cards, and it kind of goes back. It kind of goes back to the Time Vault thing, where like in order to make this busted and get that mana positive effect every turn, you have to play a bunch of bad cards.
And like, are we pointing cards because of favorable interactions?
No.
And pointing. So you were asking, does every deck slam this card? Right now, I am in a deck. One of my decks that I'm playing is on 9 points, and I could play this card. I actively choose not to.
Like, I think the monocolored decks, like Death and Taxes specifically, would slam this card if it was 0 points without even thinking about it.
Right.
Just because getting to play those huge threats on turn 2. Is very explosive, and then even if it does just sit there tapped for the rest of the game and deal you a damage every turn, you just don't care because you're killing your opponent with your huge thing.
It's the
thing. The multicolored decks, not so much.
No, and yeah, there's a super limited quantity of decks that would play it, but I think it's okay to give those kind of decks that would slam this at 0 points. It's okay to just give it to them.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah,
it's fine. We gave them balance.
It does give them like some more explosive draws, and I think that's okay.
Yeah, I agree. Like a lot of these decks right now are like, they could play 0 points and still be incredibly powerful. It's fine to have this be 0 points.
Yeah, and then another thing is like Welder, I think might, but it might not even play it though.
I don't think so at 1.
Well, the thing about Welder is a lot of like Welder is very pip dense. They have some cards that that cost a bunch of like colorless mana in addition to colored mana, but I think a large portion of Welder is like single pipped colored cards and then like single pipped colorless cards.
Right.
The the artifact mid-range deck, or I call it Affinity, Mitch's deck. I think it would play Mana Vault.
It would, yeah,
because it's not nearly as pip dense. It has a whole bunch of like three drop colorless cards, or cards that are single color that cost 4 or 5 mana. Like it could get some good use out of a Mana Vault.
It's the Platinum Angel style deck where like they're just looking to hammer out a big mana value colorless spell, or like close to colorless.
Yeah, I don't think Mana Vault needs to be pointed. The last card that we are going to talk about today is Merchant Scroll.
This is an interesting one. This is a Homelands holdover. I think it's not only is it the only pointed Homelands card, it's also one of the only playable Homelands card. And interestingly, what was the original printing of High Tide in Homelands?
Yeah, I think so.
It was. Okay, so those 2 cards go in the same deck.
Yeah. That's really funny. So Merchant Scroll is
didgeridoo.
I don't know, maybe in our local metagame I have cast Merchant Scroll more than anybody else. I don't really know because I haven't cast Merchant Scroll in a really long time, but
right.
I am a big Merchant Scroll stan, and I don't play it in Canadian Highlander decks.
Yeah.
I've casted a whole bunch in Commander. I've casted a whole bunch in Legacy, but I don't know if I've ever casted in Canadian Highlander.
Is it Pauper legal too? It's Pauper legal, right?
Merchant Scroll?
Yeah, it was common.
I don't know.
Yeah. Still didn't play it in Pauper. It's so funny because it's extremely limited in its targets, right? Blue
Basic,
instant,
basically anything that finds Ancestral Recall is pointed.
right? Uh, yeah, I've noticed that they sort of just go, okay, well, if you want a second copy of Recall, it's at least going to cost you some amount of points.
Which is silly because now there's a whole bunch of cards that aren't even bad that find Ancestral Recall and they're not pointed.
Yeah.
However, if you spend 2 mana on a sorcery and then your 1 mana on your Ancestral Recall, you've spent 3 mana to draw 3 cards. Is this bad?
All right. So technically, is it bad? Ugh, I don't know.
Is it bad? No, it's not bad to spend 3 mana and draw 3 cards. I've spent way more mana to draw less cards in Canadian Highlander. However, in the types of decks that want to do this, not only are you spending 2 or 3 mana, but you're also spending 2 cards.
2 cards, yeah.
So the recall is only netting you 1 card, and I feel like that is bad in the decks that want to do that specific thing.
So you're spending a card but getting another card in hand, and then you're spending that card to net 2 cards. So like it's 3 mana to go up 2 cards. There's a lot of points where you can have where there's potential interaction. It is sorcery speed, so like it still feels like it requires some amount of concession in your play patterns.
Yeah, but like, is this a good Magic card? I don't think it is. Is Merchant Scroll something that you want to cast face up on turn 2?
I don't think so.
No, not unless you're going to find a powerful combo piece and then proceed to go off on the same turn. I don't think playing a Merchant Scroll on turn 2 is something that is good.
I wonder if this is a holdover from back when High Tide was a much more powerful deck.
Right. So finding a High Tide with it, I think, is probably one of the most proactive and good things that you can do with it. I'm not trying to say that finding an Ancestral Recall with it is not something that's proactive, because it most certainly is.
Right.
But finding a copy of High Tide and then proceeding to combo off is something that's very, very powerful, but also like that is something that's very, very difficult to achieve. And again, we're getting back into Time Vault territory where now you're playing some cards that aren't very good. And right now what Canadian Highlander looks like is it's there's a lot of people tapping out. Mm-hmm. There is a lot of very, very big creatures. And if you're using 2 mana to go find something, whether it's something that pushes you ahead in the game or something that tries to catch you up in the game, I don't think that it's good.
No, playable, but not ideal, definitely. Like I wouldn't look sideways at a person playing this card, especially not necessarily knowing, like, if they were casting this spell, I don't know that I would counter it. I would want to see what they were getting with it.
So here's some dad advice for you. If your opponent's tutor is face up, meaning that you get to see the card that they go get, you don't counter that. You counter the spell that they go get.
Right, exactly.
If it is face down, like a vampiric tutor or a demonic tutor, you counter the tutor.
Yeah, especially since
there's your dad advice for the day.
They might be recasting that tutor. The face down tutors are way more powerful than the face up ones.
Yeah.
By large margins. And so that's sort of like where we're coming at from Merchant Scroll is this is not only a face up card, it provides many more avenues for interactions from like hosers for tutors. Like we live in a world now where Aven Mind Sensor isn't the only way to stop.
My guy. I have so many cards that are going to ruin your day if you play an Ancestral or a Merchant Scroll.
Yeah. Where I am the proud owner of an Ancestral Recall.
Two mana tutor, not where you want to be on turn 2, especially if you're on the draw.
Yeah. And if you're looking to spend a little bit of mana on a powerful tutor that is more limited in scope, Transmute is a super powerful and overlooked mechanic.
Yeah.
That just they're good spells.
Right. What I was gonna say was that the density of really good cantrips has gone up so much over the last couple of years with specifically expressive iteration.
Oh,
There are a few other ones, but specifically expressive iteration, which like might not seem as powerful. Like if your expressive iteration always finds you Ancestral Recall, that's great. But in those decks that want to be able to do that, the ability to maintain and adapt is far more important than the consistency of it.
Right.
And so something like expressive iteration, letting you look at 3 different cards and deciding what pathway you want to take is just way more powerful in a vacuum than Merchant Scroll.
Yeah, I agree. It's the 2-mana sorcery. It does pull off the top, but in these, like you said today, you don't necessarily need a specific card. All of your cards are good.
You need options.
Yeah, you're picking the most powerful, the contextually most important off of those 3.
Merchant Scroll does offer options, but they're much more limited. So it has to be a blue instant.
Right.
It can't just be like you can expressive iteration for a very powerful threat if that's what you need. You can't do that with a Merchant Scroll.
No. It's sort of, yeah. So anyway,
Merchant Scroll deserve its point.
3, 2, 1.
I think it's pretty safe to unpoint Merchant Scroll, and I would be shocked if people started playing it. Outside of like a High Tide or maybe a mono blue deck, I don't think that Merchant Scroll would see much play.
No, I do think it would be interesting to see somebody sort of innovate on High Tide if we were to
challenge. Are you challenging me?
I really think that there is space, and we sort of talked about another card that would be exceptional in High Tide, which is Intuition.
Yeah,
where I think that there is room to play around with these kind of, like, we have all these sort of blue untap effects that
there is so much unexplored space in Canadian Highlander. So much unexplored space,
especially when an archetype goes untouched for a long time.
Yeah,
because there's a lot of like this mimetic like understanding of what is and isn't playable at any given time.
They're wrong.
They're always wrong. Always wrong.
Let in the comments down below how you feel about our decisions today. Please trash talk us. What did you say last time? Tell me that I'm stupid but beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, do that.
I'm dumb but lovely.
Thanks for watching the Magic Dads podcast. As always, we just want to remind you that we're proud of you. Bye.
Love you. Kiss, kiss.